Well, it's my chance to introduce once again Tobias Brockus. Tobias, come up and dismiss the kids for junior church. Come up and share, brother. Come up and share.
Is this thing on? Can you hear me? Apparently you can't hear me because nobody responded. Well, this has obviously been a long time coming, and it's good to finally be here. As I'm sure all of you already know, my name is Tobias Brockus. I am an American, despite the fact that I don't sound like it with my name. Some of you have seen me with this really, really hot lady. That is, in fact, my wife. She is Ashley Brockus. She's the greatest blessing that's ever happened to me. And today is our seven-year anniversary. So, if you will pray for Ashley in the next 7 years, that would be fantastic. We have two little boys, Reed Jasper, who is going to be 4 next month, and Graham Asher, who will be 8 months. He'll be a year in October. I don't do the month thing. He'll be a year in October. I just kind of go, he's about this big, but since he comes from a family of giants, he should be about this big. But anyway, to be here is a great honor. And I know that you guys have been praying extensively as a church and personally for me and my family. Not just for us to be here, but for our ministry. For those of you that don't know, the past 3 years I have been a youth pastor, youth director, youth minister, whatever you want to call it, in Marion at a church called West 8th Street Wesleyan. And when I got to the church, there were 3 youth, and by the time I left, there were 3 youth. No, not really. Not really. Not really. God grew the ministry, and at its peak, we had about 30, 40, 50. The reason I say 30, 40, 50 is most of you know, you guys should plug your ears for this one. This row, and you. They are very, very hard to get to come repetitively. But God did an amazing work through my family and in that church. And a year and a half ago now, I was asked to be the guest speaker at would you call it a spiritual emphasis weekend that your church led. They actually asked my pastor to do it, and they got me. And, I'm sorry about that, guys. And so is Dave. Sorry, Pastor Dave. No. And we hit it off so well. The teens and I and Ron and even Naomi, that I've been coming once a month to your church and serving the youth and leading one youth group a month. And I fell in love with them. And God called us to step down from the ministry at West 8th Street, and He opened the door here. And again, I can't thank you enough for all the prayers that you guys have put in and the prayers that God has answered to bring us here. And it's really my honor to be serving this church. There's only one thing that I don't know about this church. There are some people that I know and some people I don't want to know. But everybody knows my name, and I don't know everybody else's name. So I'm going to ask everyone on the count of 3 if you would just go ahead and tell me your name. That way, as I'm up here bearing all, that we'll at least know each other. So I'm going to count to 3, and I need you to tell me who you are. Okay, ready? My name is Tobias, and you are 1, 2, 3. See, wasn't that easy? I feel so much better now. I feel so much better now. Ron and I have been talking, Pastor Ron and I have been talking for a while about our first Sunday here. And hi, Jackie. Welcome to up here. And one thing that Ron and I have been praying about for today is to share the momentum of what God has been doing for the past, I think, 6 months now that we've been praying, and God has been opening doors and closing doors for us to be here. And one thing that he was really adamant about me sharing with you is my heart. And in order to do this, I actually have to go back a few years and share some things that you might not particularly like. But they are the foundation of who I am and why I do what I do, why I work with youth. If I step on your toes, forgive me. If I don't step on your toes, there's an altar right here. No, I'm just kidding. I grew up in a family that was broken. My dad was a Navy man. Is that clock right? 11:30? Oh, I have you guys for half an hour. This is going to be great. My dad was a Navy man. He was very controlling, as most families are who have a military person in them. And what we got to do, I'm actually born and raised in Sacramento, California. Don't hold that against me. Many do, believe me, because I use dude a lot. So if I say dude and you're like, what in the world? I'm probably addressing you. Sorry. But we moved quite a bit. Being in the Navy, my dad was a fairly high-ranking officer. We would move up and down naval bases on the California coast. We would visit a lot. He would be gone a lot, which left me at home with my mom and my 2 brothers. I am the baby. Don't hold that against me. But it was very difficult for my parents to be separated so often, and for them to come from 2 completely different lifestyles and different homes. My dad came from Oklahoma, very hillbilly-like family. And my mom coming from a very godly family, always established, always had the roots of faith. And they find it very difficult to be together. And after bearing 3 children, my mom decided actually, while my dad was gone for the weekend, that it was time to go. So she packed up the 3 boys, most of the belongings, and brought us to Indiana. And I've regretted it ever since. I got off the plane, no lie, with long blonde hair, a tank top, board shorts, because I was a surfer, and flip-flops. It was January. And this was when they did commuter planes from bigger cities. So we actually had to get off the plane, walk to the terminal, then go into the airport. And there was about this much snow on the ground. I've hated Indiana ever since. I don't think, God is sovereign, He's all-knowing, but I don't think even He knows what the weather is going to be like in Indiana. He's just kind of like, rain. but God, it's January. Okay, fine. 90-degree weather. No, but seriously, we got off the plane, we came here, and we lived with my grandparents for a year. I was 9 years old, so this was a couple of years ago. MJ, that wasn't the joke. It's okay, MJ. That was a couple of years ago, but I remember it like it was yesterday. And unfortunately, that was the beginning of me being lost. Like I said, I grew up in a Christian home. We were always in church. We always came home to a drunk dad. And when we came to Indiana, it was a huge adjustment. Because at that time, we went from going to church on Sunday to going to church every time the doors were open, and living a very rigorous schedule of, how do I say this politely? Very strict religion. This is how things were. This is how you did it. This is a complete life change. And like most kids, that big of a change, especially with that big of a change, started that seed of rebellion in my heart. And so when we let the devil have a foothold, what does he do? He takes as much as he can. And what happened after that, I won't go into many details because, quite frankly, I don't want a lot of you to blush, especially Ron. But what had happened is, through the years, I felt my heart growing further, further, and further away from God. And it was ironic, it's interesting to know at the time that even though I was walking away from God, he was walking beside me. Sometimes I would put him behind me, but he was there the whole time. It was me that was running. And I'll get back to that in a minute. I say that for a reason. At the age of 13, and we kind of talked about this in Sunday school this morning, which was fantastic, by the way. We really enjoyed Sunday school because it was nice not to have to lead it. But anyway, I decided at the age of 13 that it was time for me to give my life to Christ. It was a huge commitment for me at the time, but I felt, at this time, I really wanted to change what was going on in my family. So we get up into the baptismal. My youth pastor gets in the water with me. It was really cold, Indiana. And right before he puts me in the water, he says, "This is for the cleansing of your sins. When you are brought up out of the water, you will be made new." I was like, "Oh, cool, dude." He takes me down to the water, brings me up, and he goes, "You can go and sin and be forgiven." Cool. Yes. This is going to be a lot of fun. So at the age of 13, women, drugs, alcohol, that's where it all started. Because I thought, hey, if this grace thing is afforded to me, then I might as well use it. Yeah, pretty stupid.